Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, either back or for the first time. Today we shall be talking about Season 1 of Hellavu, just before, hopefully, or right about the same time as Season 2 will commence. Probably should put an asterisk here. Elephant in the room. Season 1 is supposed to be 8 episodes long, but I only have 7 to talk about despite them going into season 2. Rumors abound. One of the leading ones is apparently there was some music rights issues. Apparently, maybe a cover of a song that they no longer had permission to use. But honestly, it could be just about anything from file corruption to like difficulty working with certain members of staff, which then led to a severe production cloggage for that episode. Just anything and everything could have led to this, but nevertheless, they are moving on. Some people are mad about that, especially the thing. What's it? The release they put out about it, which was trying to paint it as like it was a nice episode, but it's not like super plot heavy. We can continue on without like having to put a little lore dump before the next episode, but like people waited 8 months for it. So they were mad. They were mad. Doesn't help. Like I'm not gonna look up a point to a specific name, but someone on the show that worked with it is like, "Why are you getting so worked up over this? It's free." And I'm just gonna point to the background there. 3 standees of what's it? Moxie, Luna, and Vroska. I'm going to be pronouncing that for some reason with a Russian accent every time. I don't know. Also foreshadowing the things talking about later. And I have like 30 shirts from the 2 shows, so. Just because I do not have to pay a subscription service either to a cable company to partake in the show or just to a streaming service does not necessarily mean it is 100% utterly and entirely free. Like, there was a Patreon for it. I don't know if that's still going, as this has become more of a professional operation. But also, I imagine why would they shut it down? It seems like a good safety net. But yeah, people have had multiple ways to pay in this for quite a long time. They're invested, and saying an episode doesn't matter too much, even if it's like in the nicest way possible after several months of hype and wait. Difficult situation. I do not envy anyone for being in there. But yes, do be strategic about your involvement unless you are the head of something. You're standing up for like a personal attacking at someone who does not deserve it. It's best to withdraw until there's a more opportune moment or subject to comment upon. Anywho, that's enough of the relatively recent drama. Let us go on to talking about the show in itself. Now, I'm going to avoid doing my typical thing of going into. Yeah, there's a fly in here. I thought I got with some spray, but it's still kicking just a little bit. Just a little bit. Anyhow, my typical thing about going into too much detail, well, whatever. A lot of detail about various other movies and whatnot, especially because given this is in part, a comedy series, uh, comedy, action, drama. I mean, a lot of things are described that ways nowadays. Anyhow, in terms of comedy, it could get some laughs out of me. I have a good time. Recently binged through all of it. What's it? And jokes aren't as funny as the second time, but I was still very happy to hear a lot of stuff. Some of the things were like, yeah, that was nice to revisit. I remember laughing so hard at them the first time, but like me personally, I kind of need the metaphorical knife twisted a little bit to get a good chuckle out of me. Always need something like new. Yeah. Now where was I? Yeah, gonna avoid too many spoilers for the episode themselves. There will be some, and also episode 5 is something I kind of want to go into a little bit more about. But this is primarily going to be a commentary on the characters themselves, the way they interact with each other, and just some nitpicks I have and some hopes I'd want for. Yeah. No, I think go into it. Let us start from the top of Imp, Immediate Murder Professionals. I forgot that was a thing before I did the rewatch. I thought it was just like a name for some reason. Like, I knew there was a pun, but I just wait right over my head. Anywho, head of said organization is Blitz with a silent O, but I keep slipping into pronouncing it Blitzo because I've been reading a lot of stories about them. Yeah, and there's only so long you can read it in text while remembering. Now, don't pronounce the O in your head before you just start doing it. Anywho, he is a rather delightful, eccentric character, though somewhat self absorbed and narcissistic, and is the living embodiment of big picture, not details oriented. He is that kind of chaotic mess as a boss, but can't really. His workers can't really go anywhere else without him because the key selling point of Imp is the ability to go to the human world. Should have mentioned hell. Hell, it's in the title. It's. You see the pun. Clever, right? Anywho. Access to the human world by sleazing up with one of the royalties of hell to gain access to a grimoire that creates portals. And through that relationship, it gives the business the edge, or more frankly, the only selling point. What's it? They keep saying they don't bodyguard. It's a plot point in one episode, not major, but like, maybe branch out. You know, it's good to have a real special feature, but I feel like it's going to be very seasonal. You know, you're very much reliant on like dead people wanting revenge on people still alive. Which hell, spiteful people are bound to be there, but I don't know. For me, just bodyguarding in hell seems a bit more evergreen. But who am I to say? Anywho, he seems to be very attention starved and has a very fragile ego, but unlike Genesis other media properties that just kind of, do this purely for an outrageous character, or in other roles, just a villain, he does seem to have a fair bit of traumatic backstory that has seemed to made him afraid of rejection and being abandoned, so he constantly pushes it away. There's a whole trippy musical number about it, which is very nice. Like it's very easy for characters like that to relate to me. I don't know if this is exactly the right comparison, but what's it? Sue Sylvester and Dr. Cox, these kind of characters that are jerks but get away with it because, je ne sais quoi, they are just like speaking the truth in just their harsh but fair way, or tough love kind of way, but it's like, no, they're just being jerks, and writers are just putting in enough right points into their mouths in order to get away with it, but like, they are just fundamentally abusive, toxic characters, whereas you do feel like a lot of times Blitz is remorseful for his actions and feels trapped in the cycle. On top of that, does seem to generally care for people around them. Rewatching this, one of the nice little moments is that a lot of people pointing out is when in a fight, and assailant uses Blitz's gun to shoot his employee Moxie whilst it's in his hand, and like for a split second before he realizes Moxie was able to, deflect the bullet, hit off a rifle that he was holding, he is terrified of what might happen. And that's a really nice detail. Like, he genuinely, sincerely cares, with like other characters I alluded to earlier. I don't feel care about anything or anyone. They're just kind of, a-holes. Whereas, like, Blitz has baggage and acts out upon it. Now, I will say to that end, though, for some reason he is very toxic towards Moxie, while being very supportive to everybody else. I don't really understand the dynamic too much. Like, it's fun to an extent, but like it's one thing if it was like toned down with other people, and for some reason Moxie just got the most of it. Like, even his wife, also the other character, his daughter, you'd expect not to get as much, but like even the wife, it gets plenty of praise, almost exclusively that. And like all the what's it mockery and belittling and inappropriate behavior, which yeah is saying something, understatement of the century, aimed squarely at him, and I just don't get it too much. Especially because it's shown that he longs for the intimacy and connection that Moxie and Millie have, so I don't really understand why he belittles one but praises the other. I don't know, maybe it's just a projection of self loathing that Blitz sees something of self in Moxie, and in turn, he hates himself, so he lashes out on Moxie. I don't know. That might just be a stretch. It makes sense on paper if it were to be ascribed to these characters throughout the rest of the show, but like I I'm just not sure how strong a connection it is. I'm just trying to rationalize it. Anywho, moving on to the royalty Blitz was sleazing up with, Stolas. A rather delightful, charming Evian that feels trapped and helpless in quite frankly, a loveless marriage, and is taken to having an affair with Blitz. Trading out the grimoire, which he really shouldn't be doing, for regular liaisons, if you catch my meaning. Yes, talking about this show whilst trying to keep it PG-13. Make things easy for myself, don't I? My god, I have been rambling for a fair bit, haven't I? Oh boy, let's try and speed this up. He definitely feels like a very isolated, broken, and lonely character who is trying to reach out for any form of affection and intimacy he can, and he desires to find that with Blitz. But the transactional relationship of the nature of the relationship has made things rather difficult on that front as the end of season one. uh, Explanation, they say series for some reason in the UK. Ireland so close to it was picked up. I don't know. It's just been beaten into my head. Don't ask me why I keep doing it. Anywho, uh, eh, immediate characters related to Stolas that are brought into the show are kind of Stella, his wife, who is very mad about the whole affair and what it says about them as a family, and his daughter Octavia, who is kind of distraught by the whole situation and is just kind of lashing out at both parents, Child of an ugly divorce, in there. But yeah, it's relatable, and she was relatively charming. So far, she has only had one major appearance in an episode, or one episode she was a major feature in, I should say. Now, I really like Stolas, but I feel like I've kind of hit the nail on the head rather quickly with him. Just Very interesting. I enjoy his presence. But yeah, sad, lonely bird boy that wants affection but has, like, kind of tainted his ideal source of it. Now, what is? Yes, they seem to be like the. Oof. There's Millie and Moxie, which, they give the most duh moments to, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. But it definitely seems to be the selling ship of the show. The thing that will have, like, the most focus and time and effort put into it out of, like, any other relationship that will come about. And I'm here for it. I'm very eager for it. You kind of know where it's going. I'm not going to make, like, any prophecies about specific bumps that hit along the way, but you can see the endpoint far off on the horizon, and I'm quite eager to see how the show charts its course to said point. Now, um, yes, Luna is probably one of the most popular characters of the show, adoptive daughter of Blitz, and has had very scarce, focus within the show so far, but seems to be an aggressive, hostile, young 20 something, but with deep rooted insecurities and struggles forming, friendships and not parasocial, social relationships. And, like, despite how little she's featured, you do get a strong sense of, like, who she is as a character. It has been dropped and consistent throughout the show. Yeah, just one of my favorite characters in the show. I really do like them. And some more episodes in season 2 and beyond, focusing on them a little bit more, plot lines where they're more involved. But again, they're kind of like an aloof, edgy goth kind of tween, but they're definitely in the early 20s now, so. But yeah, definitely has that kind of that vibe, which leads them to be more aloof. So yeah, it's a strong, likable character, but I would love to see more focus, but I understand difficulties in that. Anywho, moving on to Moxie and Millie. Oh, I probably should tackle this in guy girl relationship and then my things I want to go into first. I don't have a script for these and I can't really edit them. Poor laptop. Thanks for sticking around. Should have said this way earlier, probably about 18 minutes or so earlier. Like, give or take a couple of seconds. Like, please do, and subscribe. Huge help. Gotta remember, hands up. Running gag. Anywho. Anywho. Moxie is, in terms of, like, the base archetypes, so you can get a brief glance at them. Something of a thespian in basically a drama kid, working as an assassin. Quite a career path there. One wonders how he arrived there, especially because, yeah. Well, before I get into that, like, Marky seems to be despite literally being born and raised in hell, the most, ethical and morally sound of the bunch, if not just, like, out of the general population that are naturally born in hell, which is quite a phenomenon. And there's something of a split between, people who like both Blitz and Moxie, or, one or the other, which, makes sense. And while there are some similarities, like I said, in terms of insecurities they have within themselves, they are drastically different characters and form this, je ne sais quoi, oddball and straight man routine amongst themselves when they have extended interactions. And in terms of the totem pole of the show, it would be basically Stulis and what's it, Blitz, their ship. Tied for second place is whatever the plot of a given episode is, mixed with that routine I mentioned, and then followed by what's it, je ne sais quoi, Moxie and Millie related stuff. But anywho, it does lead to, again, some interesting dynamics. It's funny at times. At the same time, it's just somewhat inconsistent based on how he treats literally everyone else around him versus Moxie. I would love to see that further explored. There was an episode where they seem to have gained some closure, but I would say one of the things I like most about Moxie is he's a very opinionated character, and he does shoot pretty straight when he has an opinion upon something. But it tries to imply he has character growth over, learning how to express himself more, which was never really an issue. It does tie that into self confidence and not being so worried about what other people think, which is something he would generally need to grow in, but that's just kind of some mixed messaging there when it comes to his character arc throughout the first season. What else? What else? No, no. He's supposedly the weapons expert of what's it, Imp, but that's something of a meaningless title, primarily given, like, everyone seems to handle what's it, firearms reasonably well, and he's not demonstrated to have any superior skill to anyone else. Like, what's it, Blitz literally says, he shoots well, but by my estimate, everybody on Imp can shoot well. Like, to highlight as a special feature of Moxie, he should be able to shoot exceptionally. Not just well, but like pretty damn great shooting, Something of an expert marksman. Constantly getting like headshots, whereas everyone else is like aiming for center of mass. But no, not really. And on top of that, he's depicted as being, somewhat wimpier, and again, drama kid, all that entails. Here for it, love it, but yeah, just isn't as capable in a fight as literally anyone else on the imp roster, to the point where question why he is on the roster of employees, given he is such a liability in the field. So often has it devolved into like hand-to-hand combat situations where he's just not fit for the task. I believe, like in episode 1, in episode 3, episode 5, and episode 6, like he is like overpowered and beaten down in various ways without like, you know, if you want to say like he can't win in like direct hand-to-hand combat, fair enough. But like, quick drawing, getting the drop on people, having gadgets or like hidden weapons on him to compensate for that. So like he's very hard to disarm, but they don't really do that. He just gets beaten down, and it appears to be a massive liability. That makes me question why he's employed for them, or at the very least, isn't the one manning reception instead of Luna and gaining intel with, Luna out in the field biting heads off. And again, that's from someone who is describing themselves as a very big Moxie fan. That should be a pretty big canary in the coal mine. I really do think it should be something addressed in, I don't know if it'll happen in season 2, but definitely onwards, where he definitely needs more than just like weapons specialist, whatever that means. Like, I feel it would be very good if he was made more the tech and gadget specialist, something that is both very useful in and out of combat. Or if this is a plot line they don't go with Luna, there's some speculation about that, or just at the very least fan hope. If not that, then maybe have him take up trying to learn magic. Just something that makes him a unique, valuable asset in the team that outweighs his like lack of hand-to-hand combat capabilities. Again, not it doesn't need to be like super powerful in terms of like whether it's gadgets or magic, but it just needs to be something. Because right now, like everyone can do what is supposedly his specialty pretty damn well, and again, multiple episodes where he's just gone down easily. I d- I don't think I need to say it much more than that. Canary in the coal mine here. Anywho, that should probably lead us on to the character I'm going to talk about last, uh, Millie. And at the end of the day, I just don't know what to say about her. She is supposedly violent, but je ne sais quoi. She works as an assassin, so there's very little repercussions to, her desire for violence. In fact, it's probably something that makes her uniquely qualified for her job. Whereas, like, Luna has the market on being aggressive, uh, and what's it? Blitz has the market on being impulsive as like definable character traits that can have like comedic impacts or just like progress a plot forward. And Moxie being the one that provides more sardonic commentary upon what is happening, pointing out the flaws or like the impulsivity to either serve as a joke itself or just to be undermined and also in general be the punching bag of the show. Like I struggle to think of what Millie adds in her own right as opposed to just being someone who is good at a fight, but like again, at least two of the other characters in the show are good in a fight. It's not something uniquely special to her. She's not that outrageously good in comparison to Blitz or Luna. And like it's made out to be stubborn, but that hasn't had the focus on her to like really make hammer that home in like previous episodes. A little tired. I'm starting to ramble a little bit. Not ramble, lose my train of thought. Anyhow, I just struggle to define her as a character other than being like Moxie's wife and, you know, just violent as an assassin, which isn't really ain't funny. It's just like the bare minimum you need to do as an assassin, being willing to engage in violence. And like just doesn't add the biggest of like unique dynamics. I every laugh or like neat scene had with Millie, you could give to another character easily. Whereas things with like Luna, things with Blitz, Dolas, Moxie, I find it hard to be so interchangeable for a majority of them. Like, not everything has to be hyper specific to a character. Sometimes some of the jokes a character make can be outside what they normally would, hence adding to the joke. Something you do not expect from that character. But like, I can't think of like anything tied into Millie specifically that like really pops within the show. Like she's not an inherently unlikable character. It's just has not had the time or focus, not even just in the show, but like on a foundational level in the writing room to kind of figure out what she adds to the show in comparison to Moxie. you know? The primary reason she is kind of in this show is to have a lovely ship between Millie and Moxie. Like, that seems to be the sole thing she has going for her in this relationship. Sorry, in as a presence in the show. But like even then, that's not the greatest. And also, you could probably swap it out for other characters to have greater dynamics, whilst also still providing everything Millie does. Examples being like the most popular one being Luna herself, ironically, which would bring like a whole development of the relationship, going from like antagonistic acquaintances to friends to lovers, which again is a big ship I'm into, while still maintaining everything like Luna has, while also providing more focus on everything Millie has going for her in her ship, while also providing more focus upon Luna and her plots. Because, like I said, on the totem pole, it goes Stolas and What's It Blitzo, What's It Straight Man, and What's It. I keep saying What's It too much. Straight Man and Oddball Routine equaled with whatever the current plot is, down to Moxie and his relationship. That would quantifiably put him more up on the totem pole. And Je ne sais quoi. Some other ones. Very neat ship that's been popularized by one fanfic, I believe. The Thespian and the Pop Star. Pop Star. I'll link to it below. Between Moxie and Veroska. Very interesting story, and for the record, I don't really view that as like out of character too much, or like a cracked ship. Something I view as a cracked ship would be Je ne sais quoi. God, within the show itself, probably like still while enjoying it, would be Stella and Striker character from episode 5. Antagonist. Assassin hired by Stella. Neat fan art of them. Very nice. In all likelihood, he probably wants to kill her just as much as he wants to kill Stolas. He kind of wants to elevate himself in the world, prove that he is capable and is, able to kill them and go high up on the totem pole that he currently is with imps, which he is, and everyone else said imp except Luna, who's a hellhound, is on the lowest totem pole, just bottom of society. So that isn't very visible. Whereas, like, again, just chance encounter between Moxie and Veruska, and just a bit of kindness, and then building across that over time, more viable. Also, another lovely one that is way more niche, but surprisingly, despite not having as much appeal, has received a lot more like individual works to it, which does make sense given like the je ne sais quoi, just the story behind that would be Moxie and Stella. Like, again, everything that you could get with like Millie and Moxie, but also a redemption arc for Stella, which apparently, a lot of the fan base seems to want that, a significant amount of it. Which, if it's done well, I'll be there for it. On top of that, also overcoming Stella's prejudice of, imps. She is, again, views them as the lowest class in society and is outraged that of all people, Stolas is cheating on her with, it is an imp. Because it's such a disgrace and indignation to their good name. And seeing her overcome that, as well as, empathizing more, like, hey, getting cheated on kind of sucks, even if, like, it's a bad relationship that nobody's happy with. And again, whereas, like, say, Moxie and Octavia, way more of a crack ship, doesn't seem all that viable unless you just like the two characters separately and want to push those action fishes together. All it would take is, like, Stella breaking up for a moment with Moxie around, to witness, and him just, again, very moral, ethical, and reasonably compassionate character for someone who, again, is a demon. Like, I don't know if he won the lottery or he was just cursed with the worst fate to have in hell. But, and again, the fanfic thespian and the pop star focus around him just like offering them comfort and a shoulder to lean on for a moment without any reward or expectation, just trying to do a nice, kind thing because that's kind of who he is, even if he doesn't particularly like the person. It seems somewhat within his character. And yeah, it is just a very fascinating ship that I would love to see more fanfics about, but also like needs to be done because like there's something lacking within Millie and Moxie. It's very one-sided in terms of like effort to the relationship, with Moxie doing the most to woo and romance Millie without anything really reciprocated in return, and Millie just doing like I consider the bare minimum, which you could get again with any of these other characters, and also more unique dynamics in terms of like growth of said relationship to how they interact with each other to again all of them being like somewhat difficult personalities, which would be you know not a problem for Moxie because they wouldn't be as difficult to him, but he would have to like live in the afterwake, deal with the people they annoy or like the eccentricities, which just leads to a more creative, dynamic, and comedic environment. Whereas Millie is just, again, violent, but working as an assassin, the job most suited to someone prone to violence. Like, there's no repercussions to her impulses, and everyone else has like a monopoly on any other trait that could define her a bit more, at least has been vaguely ascribed to her so far, or could go off of like stubborn. Also, on top of that, there's like an element with kind of toxic, if you consider this in real life, but I guess for the sake of the show, of Moxie shooting out of his league with Lily. Millie, I should say. Oh god, take a shot every time I say those names and you kill yourself. Anywho. But again, Imp's bottom of the totem pole, him dating any of the others, being a hellhound, a succubus, and a princess, I want to say, though they're married, though I guess Lucifer would be king. Anyhow, princess of hell, all of those entail shooting out of his league way more. There's, again, like if I had the power to like force one upon the show, it would be what's it, Luna and Moxie, but like any of them, any of them, this needs to be a change. This because all this thing has is the superficial daw moments, but that's at least for me not enough. I For those to mean something to me, I need the relationship to be built up and justified, either before they get together or do things like je ne sais quoi. Well, it is kind of just like a friends with benefits situation right now. So yeah, before they properly get together, like Stolas and Blitz, or in the case of a married couple, just retroactively to show like why they're married. Right now, I can't really figure out what would bring Moxie over to Millie other than just the sex. Whereas, like, I could see why Millie would want Moxie. Supportive, compassionate, uh, puts a lot of effort in trying to, keep the romance alive and, win them over without like trying to slip into like nice guy territory. It's very just like it doesn't actually work too much in real life. it's not a cheat. You have to be very earnest about like writing a sonnet for someone you care about. Otherwise, it will tank. Yet he's done it multiple times because that's just who he is, drama kid. Anywho, I'm getting a bit lost in the weeds as it is. But yeah, just the lack of characterization for Millie has then extended, at least for me personally, into the relationship of Eminem. Just gonna shorten that. Oh boy, I have been talking for a while. God, I have gotten lost in time here. Anywho, make sure that doesn't follow me. Again, like, had to pick. I'd go for Luna to change it, or like go back to the drawing board and like change course. But again, just any change at all would be far preferable, adding far more dynamics, and also, before I forget, comedic and karmatic or karma punishment to what's it Blitz for like all the ridicule, mockery, and inappropriate behavior that he demonstrates towards Moxie, being like A with Luna, je ne sais quoi, uh, adopted stepdaughter, him kind of like crossing lines about trying to keep an eye out on what's it, the M&Ms during intimate moments. Suddenly, that is between Moxie and Luna, kind of weaponizing that against him. And I can just see the first time it actually happens, that change, him finding out and just being devastated. Just pure silence, soulless expression, dead inside, would be hilarious. As for what's it, Verovska, Blitz's ex, and Stella, difficult marriage with Stolas. At some point, I can imagine Blitz's partner. Again, Stolas eventually being Blitz's partner. Like, adding both of those in would be a good bit of a comedic karma to what's it, Blitz. Taking an ex he would hope would be out of his life for good, and then making a permanent fixture in his life via connection with Moxie, someone who he does not wish to like cut from his life, either in a business sense or a personal sense, because again, he does genuinely care in his own messed up way about Moxie. Like, it just makes for good comedy where he ridicules and belittles what's it, Moxie, and then said either Stella or Veroska ridicules him back, not necessarily in retaliation, but just something he kind of has to live with now. It just brings a lot of comedy to mind for me. And before, like, well, I probably should have said this a lot earlier then, probably a comment there already if this does anything. Before anyone says, like, but you really like what's it, Moxie and Millie, even if you like also recognize like she's been a bit undeveloped as a character, you find it very sweet. I do too, but it's like I need more of that to get that full oomph from those sweet doll moments. But even anywho, even if you're like, but I still like them. I don't want that relationship to end. I The primary way like most people are like introduced to the ship of Moxie and Luna is through something that features Millie as well, and not just like crying in the background, but like an active participant to some extent, having a fun time as well. Would not be a terrible idea to incorporate like any of these ships to add a more interesting dynamic into the show, extending like the M&Ms into something of a throuple there, or just some kind of political relationship, especially because having another character to regularly interact off and reflect off of could serve as an opportunity to then further define Millie herself. Which, I mean, if you literally, in episode 5, they go to her, her home in the Wrath Ring, to a family home, and yeah, that ends up being a Moxie episode. And I could probably pinpoint exactly why that happened, being plot reasons, special heaven gun that, uh, again, weapon specialist can identify on sight. So, thus, working backwards from there, he kind of has to be the central character of that side of the plot to then get to the point where he can identify the weapon, undermining like any potential development for Millie. But yeah, like if you can't get it, from going to a home, you gotta take some drastic measures. Also, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a supple supple sucker for thruples and polygamous relationships. Not necessarily always like what's it your typical isekai nonsense, but yeah, general equal love affairs between what's it multiple partners. I do find very fascinating in terms of like understanding and fleshing out of various characters, how they interact and connect with each other, and what makes them start to care and fall in love with each other. From going to acquaintances to friends to lovers. It's something I just find very fascinating. I feel like would generally, with any of them at all that I mentioned, or a custom built new character for this, add interesting new dynamics into the show while also then providing more je ne sais quoi character development for Millie. If by no other reason than just like affirming how confident and secure she is in her relationship, that like she realizes that like Mark has not drifted away from her in any way. He still cares deeply for her, but has just been kind to a person and spent enough time with them that something has started to develop. And she doesn't want him to be trapped in this awkward position. Or, well, not awkward, but like, he doesn't want him to be hurt or be in pain about having to, go through this difficult transition of like unrequited love or like spurning somebody who he's just worried about hurting, and just being secure in the relationship, knowing he still loves her and moving on to that. Like that would speak a lot to Millie as a character. Just again, just repeating myself now with the word confidence. If I say it enough, it may sound like a good idea. But I also, again, like I said, polygamy, weakness of mine. I find it very fascinating in stories. Yeah. Anything else I really want to say about recurring joke about what's it Moxie and have certain preference he has with Millie. Again, PG-13, but it was funny the first time because it was just out of the blue. And the second time it came up, not so much. Third time, some iteration was done. It was a hallucination musical number when it got brought up. So that's better, but again, if they're not going to iterate upon it, it cannot survive as a running gag. It really has to just be nipped in the bud. And given the production line of these shows, they're kind of getting made as they go along, not already well before like the first episode comes out. Some things are still in production, whilst je ne sais quoi early episodes are releasing. I can very much see, like, I believe it was episode 3 it came out in, and the two additional references there were in episode 6, several months after. I could see that becoming a meme, which, repeated ad nauseum in a communal sense is different than a structured joke in a film or TV show. Those are two different beasts there, and you can't just mindlessly repeat the same thing again and again on a show. It loses its value. You get the shock value the first time, and that is not something that returns. You have to learn on various ways to iterate upon it. Yeah, I think that's about everything. Going over it once more. Stolas is eccentric, narcissistic, but damaged and likable to me. Just love Stolas. Here for the ship between the two of them. Enjoyable buddy cop dynamic, not buddy cop dynamic, straight man oddball routine between Blitz and Moxie. What else? Again, very funny show. Interesting setting and premise I'm very much enjoying. Some nice world building going on. Moxie, probably one of my favorite characters alongside Luna, but definitely has some weaknesses, some stuff needs to be strengthened up there in terms of like character development and utility to the team. He seems like way too much of vulnerability to actually be on Imp at present. Uh, some more stuff with Luna would be nice. Good way, in my opinion, to do that. Again, just like any of them, insecurity, vulnerabilities. Moxie sees that, tries to support them, and leads to friendship, and then over time leads to something more, which complicated character dynamics between. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, at the end of the day, at least it will create some interesting drama between like Moxie, Millie, and whoever the third reel is. I say third wheel. That's not always a negative thing. They'll say the motorcycles or um, motorcycles with side carriages or just like three wheels in general. But anywho, I believe that is just about everything I wanted to say. Um, Argue me in the comments that Moxie and Charlie from Hasbin Hotel would not work as a ship. There's no way it wouldn't. Again, Moxie has way too strong of moral ethical concerns not to get on board with Je ne sais quoi. The Happy Hotel initiative Charlie is working on, if given like a more direct opportunity, and things will lead to from there. Fight me. Fight me. Or just comment anything. It helps. Anywho, thanks very much for watching this all the way through. Do some streaming on another channel, Sod Passion Gaming, Thursdays to Sundays, all kinds of various stuff. You can find that via the link tree and about section of this channel. What else? Yeah, various other reviews that will be coming out here. Discord server you can join, and if you want things you want me to review or get my thoughts upon, there's a suggestion area over there on the Discord, so be sure to join it. And I think that's everything I'd want to plug. So, without further ado, it's time to say ta-ta, Wiedersehen, until we meet again. Bye-bye. Awkwardly stopping every time. Whoops.